Good morning. It's so good to be with you for the 6th annual Flavors of Utah event. But as Dave mentioned, in some ways, this is actually the 11th annual event. This is an event that we started in my office in 2011. And I like Dave's description. It's the biggest Pioneer Day celebration. We hold it in Washington, D.C. That's east of the Mississippi. And in Washington, it's kind of fitting because, at a Pioneer Day celebration in Washington, you have to say, this isn't the place. And I'm so glad that it's not. I'm so glad that my ancestors came to this valley rather than that swamp. It's much better here. I want to start out by thanking our Flavors of Utah sponsors. Dave Davis, of course, the Utah Food Industry Association, who's also a longtime friend of mine. We've been good friends since law school. Scott Anderson and Dale Stevens of Zions Bank, Bob Obrey, Ryan Barnes, and Sarah Pettit of Associated Foods. And without this group, there would be no Flavors of Utah, not this year, not in a year. I also want to recognize West Valley City, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and the My Hometown initiative, which we're here to celebrate today. When Brigham Young and the first pioneers came to this valley in 1847, it didn't look like much, but it wasn't about the place as much as it was about them at that moment. They embodied a spirit of courage, of cooperation, of endurance and entrepreneurship, ready to build a new life and ready to undertake new ventures and build a thriving new economy. There are rumors about how many trees could be found in this valley at the time they arrived. Some said that there was only one or two. It wouldn't surprise me if that were true. I'm glad that that's no longer the case. Flavors of Utah is about celebrating that same vitality that they brought with them. So in past years, we've celebrated that by hosting these events in Washington, D.C. Like Dave said, just a big bucket and a bunch of dry ice to make root beer and pie and ice cream. What could be more Utah? And we'd also serve Jell-O from time to time, as we do every week, every Wednesday at 3:30 in my office when the building's not closed for COVID. Initially, I thought this would be just a fun way. As a kid, I loved making root beer, any excuse to mess around with dry ice. But it became a fun activity. And over time, members of Congress and their staffs and other people around town, people who had nothing to do with Utah, started asking, what's your next Pioneer Day celebration? We want to come to it because they realized it was a lot of fun. Due to the pandemic in 2020 and now in 2021, Flavors of Utah events have looked much different. We've pivoted from channeling that spirit that we've been celebrating from a food sampling model to a food giving model. And this year we're fortunate, very fortunate, to be partnering with 9 great food producers. Butcher's Bunches, Creminelli Fine Meats, Frito-Lay, Kodiak Cakes, Pioneer Chips, Sweet Candy Company, Lauer Foods, Madbrook Donuts, and Taffy Town. Together, we've assembled 500 Utah product bags and put together a lunch that we'll be donating to the My Hometown Initiative. I love the My Hometown Initiative. It's something that helps me be happy whenever I think about it. It's a neighborhood improvement coalition made up of residents, city workers, and volunteers from various churches, various organizations and walks of life. It runs entirely on private donations and on the fuel of volunteerism. All the time we hear the accolades about Utah being one of the best places to live, and it is, and one of the best places to start a business, and it's that too, and one of the best places to raise a family, and it certainly is that. Well, those accolades are all true. They could never exist without Utah's most impressive accolade of being one of the best connected communities in the nation. What I mean by that is that I've undertaken a review of a lot of sociological studies over the last few years about what contributes to a community being a good place to live. What is it that allows for an individual or a family or a community to thrive? A lot of it really just depends on individuals being able to access and develop connections with other individuals. We need each other. We need access to each other, first and foremost, in order to thrive. Individuals who are more connected, whether it's through their family, through the church, synagogue, or mosque, through a fraternal organization, or just through their neighborhoods, are more likely to thrive and more likely to climb the socioeconomic ladder. We do that really well in Utah. And it's one of the reasons why in Utah we consistently have the highest rates of upward economic mobility. This is a place where you can be born into poverty or move here with nothing and have a greater chance of achieving the American dream one day than any other place in America. This is one of the many reasons why I love the My Hometown initiative. It's not government mandated. There wasn't a law passed to make it. It was created by the community for the community to improve the community. Well, the program has had an immense amount of success in seeing a problem and noting it and drawing volunteers to come and fix it. It's also brought together communities in a way that really should be a model for other communities throughout the nation to follow. One community member, Nicholas Orwin, who's here with us today, shared this quote, and this is a quote that I've also shared on the floor of the United States Senate. He said, "We live in a strange world these days. We hear this ideology that if you don't look like me, talk like me, act like me, vote like me, then we must be enemies. But throughout all this social upheaval, this community has worked together and served one another in such a brilliant and beautiful way that it just defies the ideology that we're different and we have to segregate ourselves out into groups. Even in the dark days of COVID," he continues, "this community service was such a bright, shiny star. Through all of that hard, we have this really beautiful and safe community service that was happening." Close quote. He said it masterfully. The work that My Hometown does is felt not only through this community, but through communities all across this valley. A member of my staff who lives in a neighboring community has seen firsthand the volunteer opportunities, the relationships, and the connections that have come about through the program as his ward has worked hand in hand, taking on assignments here in West Valley as part of the My Hometown initiative. Connecting people to people and communities to communities and cities to cities is, in fact, the Utah way. It's why this all works so well. I'm incredibly impressed by the work that the initiative has already accomplished, and I look forward to seeing not only the great work the organization continues to do, but also how other communities will learn from its success. It's been said that the greatness of a community is most accurately measured by the compassionate acts of its members, of the people who make up that community. If that's the case, then Utah truly is a great place with a spirit truly worth celebrating.